Are the views that you and your colleagues hold out of step with where the nation is?
Well, I can assure you that the American public wasn't asked in that poll about components of the bills Democrats are moving through Congress to do those things. So, under the guise of red flag, they take away due process. You do have to follow the laws and the Constitution. We are not focusing on the root cause of the problem. The immediate visceral reaction of Democrats in Washington is to go after the rights of gun owners in America.
That's the number 2 House Republican, Steve Scalise, over the weekend, deflecting when asked whether Republicans are out of step with the majority of the Americans who support stronger background checks and red flag laws. The debate over gun legislation is still at our forefront after another weekend of violence that saw 3 people killed in a mass shooting in Philadelphia, 3 others killed outside of a nightclub in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and at least 9 more people were killed in more than a dozen mass shootings across the U.S. this weekend. It's horrifying. The violence coming in the wake of the tragic shootings in Uvalde, Texas, and Buffalo, New York. Once again, that violence has Americans pressuring Congress to act. Members of the Boston Celtics and Golden State Warriors, plus the coaches, donned End Gun Violence T-shirts before Game 2 of the NBA Finals on Sunday. While the anti-gun violence group Moms Demand Action held rallies across the nation. More demonstrations are planned in D.C. in the coming weeks. Now, a bipartisan group of senators is negotiating on gun reform, but the senator spearheading the Democratic side, Chris Murphy of Connecticut, who was the congressman for Sandy Hook at the time of that school shooting, he's already revealed that some of the Democrats' highest priorities will not be in the bill.
We're not going to do everything I want. We are not going to put a piece of legislation on the table that's going to ban assault weapons, or we're not going to pass comprehensive background checks.
Is raising the age limit, as these Texas conservatives say they want to happen, from 18 to 21, is that on the table?
I think right now we're trying to figure out what can get 60 to 70 votes in the Senate.
So an assault weapons ban? Out. Comprehensive background checks? Out. And raising the age to buy assault-style weapons? Doesn't sound hopeful. So then what will be in this bill? Murphy says things like red flag laws, mental health, and school safety are all included, as did GOP Senator Pat Toomey, who's part of the group in these talks. Toomey is also pushing to expand background checks. Both he and Murphy say a deal is closer than it's ever been before, and they're confident one can be reached that will overcome the Senate filibuster. But as always, the devil is in the details. Will a filibuster-proof bill actually be substantive, or will it be a watered-down capitulation to Republicans? And if it's the latter, is passing any bill at all just to say you did pass one really the best way to go when it comes to tackling this very real life and death problem? Joining me now is Chris Brown, president of Brady, United Against Gun Violence. Thanks so much for coming on the show. While mental health and school safety measures are being discussed in the bipartisan Senate talks, you just heard Senator Murphy there say that comprehensive background checks and an assault weapons ban are probably off the table. What is your reaction to that?
Well, obviously, I lead Brady, and Jim and Sarah Brady are responsible for our background check system. I've talked to the senators who are negotiating and have been very clear that Brady wants the strongest background check bill to pass the Senate that we can. And it's sitting in the Senate right now already, Maddie. That's H.R. 8 that was bipartisan, passed the House of Representatives. And it's a real shame if we don't have the opportunity to include the strongest possible closure of loopholes. 1 in 5 guns sold right now is sold with no background check at all. So we've been very clear we want to move forward with some fix to the background check system, and 90% of Americans want that.
On the flip side, you have many Republicans like Steve Scalise, blaming everything, pointing the finger at everything but the obvious root cause of this, which is guns. How do we begin as a country, as a nation, as a political system? How does it address gun violence when one of our 2 major political parties refuses to name the problem?
It's a very good question, and I don't know that I have all of the answers. I think part of what I'm seeing, and you showed it, Betty, in the lead up to this, is individuals from across this country who have a platform, people like Steve Kerr. Obviously, the Celtics joined in with that game yesterday with the Warriors. We have business leaders in Texas, many who've not raised their voices before, saying something has to be done. So we have to continue to put pressure. This issue is changing for many Americans who don't feel safe in public. And one of the things that I find most puzzling, but we can lift our voice to change this, is what we're really talking about here in the end is, frankly, a pretty conservative notion. The Brady Law stands for the proposition that a background check needs to happen before a gun sale. This is not radical. And Steve Scalise, I heard him on Fox News yesterday, seemed to be asking the question, why should I, as a legislator, pass something where someone might violate the law? Well, that's what legislators do. They pass laws,
Yes.
and some people violate those laws.
I know, it's
it
bizarre.
doesn't mean we don't act.
It's bizarre. We don't get rid of speeding laws because people speed. It's just madness, that line of argument. Today, Chris, New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed a package of bills strengthening the state's already tight gun laws. They included raising the age to buy semi-automatic weapons to 21. In the absence of federal action, what else can state and local governments do to address gun violence? And is there a political will for it at the local level?
Oh, so many things, Mehdi. And actually, we've seen a huge movement in that direction, especially since Parkland. You know, these extreme risk protection laws, which I do think will be on the table with the Senate, as you noted, 19 states have passed those laws, which allow a court order, due process, to remove guns from an individual at risk. The package that New York, that Governor Hochul signed today, include things like codes of conduct for how guns are sold by gun shops across this country, well, in the state of New York, which is really important. Fixing issues with respect to how guns are sold is part of it, but also micro stamping of bullets in the state of New York, like California has done. It's hugely important for how law enforcement solves crimes.
So just sticking with New York for a moment, in the coming weeks, the Supreme Court is expected to rule against a century-old New York law requiring a reason other than general self-protection to obtain a concealed carry license for a firearm. If that law is overturned, as expected, what does that mean for gun laws across the country? What does that mean for legislative attempts to bring in gun control when you have a Supreme Court just shooting it down? Sorry, not the greatest of phrases, knocking them down.
Understandable, Mehdi. It's a concern. It's a major concern of ours. And the law that you're referencing, of course, is the New York century-old concealed carry permitting system. We are concerned about what this court will do. It's not just New York. It's 8 other states that have similar laws. And we're going to have to keep our eye on this because it will make us all less safe if what the Supreme Court says is there's no permitting system that's acceptable for who gets to carry a gun in public. You can be sure, though, if that Supreme Court decision happens, there are groups like Brady across the country who will move to reinstate these systems in our states. It's what we need in the public safety, and we have to move forward with that no matter what.